First of all, thanks everyone for being here. My name is Walmyr Carvalho. I am one of the organizers of the GDG São Paulo. For those who doesn't know, is in Brazil. And so, olá, this is how we say hello in Portuguese. The easiest word ever. So, olá. This is São Paulo. As you can see, is huge as hell. It's one of the biggest cities in Brazil. And this is GDG São Paulo. We have like more than 6 years of existence. We have like 10,000 members on Meetup.com. Like it's huge. We have events coming every month. Right now, we're really focused on the Android Meetup, but every time that we have the opportunity to bring more content, we do it. So we have talks about Angular, Android, Cloud, HTML5, IoT, and more. I put here like 10 organizers, but usually had a lot of organizers joining and leaving the organization. So we have like Leon here, Chris. Raise your hands, organizers here for São Paulo. São Paulo, yeah. But in Brazil, we have a lot of organizers. So, so we are really excited to have as a lot of different people organizing the meetup. As Anna said on the previous meetup, previous talk, sorry, about the kind of importance of have diversity in the organization. So each people is represented properly. So yeah. And what is a meetup for you guys? What for you folks? What is a meetup for you? What do you think as a meetup? Anyone can have like this elevator pitch of what is a meetup? Yes, that's a very good definition of meetup. Yes. Anyone else? Anyone else? For me, this is the very regular structure of a meetup. We have this venue, and we have a date and time, and we also have some speakers for talks or maybe other activities. Some people, food and beverages, yay, which is really good. And sometimes in Brazil, it's really common to have these giveaways, so people engage in meetups in general. Unfortunately, sometimes we need to do that to have meetups and people joining, which is kind of the wrong reason to do meetups. We don't want to have meetups just for like making giveaways and stuff, but it works. For us, it's good because, for example, here we usually get a lot of stickers, a lot of gifts and swags, and then we bring up to the for the meetups like to give away. It's really good. Sometimes we actually don't need that much of stuff that we get on the event, so it's really good to really good way to have people joining. And at GDG São Paulo, we usually had a lot of different approaches for meetups, and we tried everything that I will present here. So this is some pictures of our meetups. As you can see, you have a lot of different styles. That one was an old one. Leon, do you remember the year, that one? For Woman Tech Maker? 16, okay. Okay. That one was for Women Tech Makers. This one was more or less Android Meetup. It was very nice venue. This one was a Cloud Studio Jam. As you can see, mostly women joining, which is really cool. It's really nice. And that one was a workshop made by Ubiratan. He's one of the Google Developer Experts for Android in Brazil. Also, one of our former GDG organizers, which is great. And the funny thing about the meetups in general that we have this kind of personas. I think you can relate to that. I'll pass it through here to see if you can relate to that. We have this kind of engaged persona that goes to every goes to every meetup and says, "Oh my God, everything's so perfect, and everyone's so beautiful, and I want to learn Android and I Firebase and everything." And stays there like so happy about everything. This person that we always want in our meetups, which is great. We have other kind of people joining meetups. Yeah, obviously for the content, definitely for the content, one different kind of content. And I always like having some kind of break times to find some content or maybe some food around, something like that. It's cool. We have this other kind of persona who doesn't sleep that much and goes by and comes straight from the work and goes to the meetup like, oh my God, I need to sleep, but I need to pay attention, but the voice of the speaker is so good, and be like, oh my God. And yeah, this is just making fun about this, but how can we as organizers can we engage this kind of personas. Like how can we make content that's is not sleepy for people, that's not like people like ignoring the content just to get the food. Like how to have just that first person on every meetup, like how we engage people. That's what that's what I want to talk about today. Talk about a little different schemas for and models for meetups in general and talks. So how can we as organizers and also as the speakers can have the best format specifically for the best meetup? Okay, sounds great. Just a disclaimer: this all these suggestions are based on my experience as organizer. Uh, besides GDG São Paulo, I'm also organizer of Android Dev BR, which is one of the biggest Android communities in Brazil. We have like 5,000 people on Slack, which is really big. And I was also former GDG Rio de Janeiro organizer in 2014, I guess. And the format is the same. The people is it's like scientific. You can replicate all the tips here to any other kind of meetup and encounter in general. Okay. Uh, talks. How can we improve talks in general? How can we, as organizers, can set up talks better? How can we have this kind of structure for talks in a better way? A first tip for me is explore the options. For example, if you have a talk that the content's not so big, but it's still relevant, you can have a lightning talk, which lasts for like 15 minutes or maximum, or 20 minutes maximum with questions. So pick the content in the context of each meetup and the best format for that kind of talk in general. Another tip, if possible, is curate the content. So if your organization or if your meetup has this kind of specific level of the quality of the content, it's good enough to for organizers at least to pick the content 1 hour or one day before presenting, just to make sure that the content is good enough or is not repetitive. Or for example, if some content was presented at the previous meetup in the last week or last month, the next meetup we will have to have the same content. So it's good to have this kind of minimum curating. Okay. Uh, have a proper setup for talks that need some specific setup. For example, live coding. It's very common for people like to have another person here like live coding, and people stays like it is, like really sad and and waiting other person to finish the live code. So always make sure that you have the proper structure for talks in general, which is good. Uh, and also curate this part as well. Make sure that the speaker has everything accessible. Anna and Thiago mentioned in the previous talk that about having, for example, sign language interpreter for a talk if it's accessible, or like the proper microphone, or like order and close by, this the proper structure. Okay, it's very important this part to have a code of conduct for every talk, or at least for the meetup in general, because it's very common. We don't know every attendee or every speaker that goes by a meetup. So sometimes he or she makes a joke that's really harmful for some persons, like LGBT, or maybe a person that's like black or a minority. So it's really important to have this kind of it comes back to the creating part. So it's really important to like have this minimum filter for the content in general. Okay. Uh, and this part is really important because people usually don't provide slides after the talks. I usually do that as well, which is sad. Don't do that. It's important to provide the slides because people, if you don't have the slides or recording of the talks, you can have at least some of the content that was presented. So it's important to have the slides and test everything before. It's very common in the meetups to have everything like exploding just in time that we started the stuff. So it's important to test everything at least 1 hour, 2 hours before. Okay. Okay, this part is as organized, but how can I improve as a speaker? Now, how can I, as a speaker in a meetup in general, how can I improve? Here's some tips. I really focus on the content. So for me, content is really good. So if you have a meetup and that you goes, your slide has a lot of gifs, a lot of stuff, but the content is just okay. People will remember just that you were funny. People not remember that the content was good or not. So it's important to be remembered because of your content and how you provide them to the attendees, not because your talk is funny or because the slides were made really good, but the content itself is just meh. Okay. Track your time properly. It's really important to have this kind of minimum tracking of the time. So for talks in general, that you need to be very precise in terms of the content, how much you need to speak. Really important to track time. Okay. Uh, Keep an eye on the audience. You need to look at everyone to see if everyone is getting the content properly, if it's not talking like silly things or if it's pointless or whatever. Uh, this stuff is really serious about, especially related to the code of the conduct. If you have this kind of jokes on the talk, watch out to not be disrespectful with anyone. So it's really important to have this kind of content that's respectful. Uh, this part is really good for developers. Who here is developer, like as daily basis? Okay. We actually get our fingers like itchy to make show code and to have provide code on our talks every time. So if you're showing code too much, maybe talk isn't the best format for it. So try to think about maybe a workshop or maybe a dojo or the other format. Okay. So in talks in general, is avoid as much as possible to show live coding because things blows up. So it's really common to have these kind of problems during live code. Oh, this doesn't work, but should work like that. And people say, okay, but it's not working. So, so it's really common to have this kind of mess up in terms of talking about coding. So watch out with that. Uh, and that's the tip that I was talking. Like, give the audience something to go back home to think about. Like, okay, I just saw your talk, and then you said something about Kotlin coroutines, for example. Okay, I will think about it, and I remember that you say something about that, and then I'll go and find stuff to study more about it. So it's not about you; it's about your content and how you're presenting. Okay, and this is really very important point about feedback in general. People usually don't get feedback, and it doesn't even provide a pipeline between attendee and speaker in general. So it's really important to gather feedback. So this is very important. This talk is a really good recommendation for me because I think it's one of the best talks that I saw in my life. Brett Victor is a guy that usually worked at Apple, and he worked for Al Gore and a lot of big clients and big projects. And he has this talk that do you remember that kind of slideshow, that old one that you put the transparent plastic sliders on that, and he does something with that slider and talks about the future of programming. Like even the dress code that he was using was like he was a developer in 1973, but this talk was in 2013. So it's really cool the way that he was presented, and this talk taught me a lot about how to make talks properly and how to set up a structure for talks in general. All right. Okay. But what if a talk isn't a good enough format for that kind of content? What other options do we have? Do you have any idea of other kinds of formats that you can provide content to the audience? Anyone? Okay. I'll talk about three of them. Panels and debates are a really good example of how to make how to pass content to the audience. For those who doesn't know what is a panel, Comic Con has this really famous panel for like Game of Thrones and like new movies and like especially for Marvel movies and like movies that get such a big hype. So this the actually the panel is like a structure that you have usually a moderator, and this moderator has a lot of people invited, and these people knows a lot about the stuff that they are presenting. And the panel or their debate has this structure of a person to set the mood, right? Uh, a person to set the mood, and all the attendees like presenting and showing the content in a way that is like a discussion, it's not like a talk. So it's really not there's no slides, there's no like script or something. It's like very natural. So how can we as organizers like set up a basic debate or a basic panel? So here are some tips that I think that are useful. I put in this way that's really good to take photos. So I'll share the slides later, but this one's important. Uh, this first one is really important because it's really common to have a lot of people in a panel or a debate, but like 10 people with 45 minutes of time for the debate. So everyone has like one or two questions to respond, or like four or 5 minutes to talk. is not that much, which is bad. So I recommend to have this proportion between the time that you have with the participants. So everyone has at least 10 or more than 5 minutes to talk. So it's important to have this proper content because everyone that was invited for the panel is important. So you don't making like put anything anyone in featured. So everyone has the same level of space to talk. So it's important. Uh, the second part is hard, like to find a good moderator, like a person to provide proper engagement to the content because it comes back to the code of conduct. It's really common in Brazil. Sometimes people get this funny person that do a lot of jokes, but then he makes some sort of like joke about people being fat or being black, blah blah blah. So it's really there's a very uh, a straight line, being very thin line between being funny and being disrespectful. So watch out with that. Uh, this part is really important because sometimes in Brazil we have this kind of panels and everyone goes pass the microphone like just this time passing around takes so much time. So you lose the momentum. So the panels in general should be like this, not like sad and funny and sad. Should be like the kind of stuff that keeps you engaged. So should be like very linear in terms of engagement. So this kind of stuff makes it really goes down. So it's good to have this kind of proper setup. Okay, it should be fun. It's not like kind of panel about structures and rocks and very sad stuff. So it should be fun. The content should be fun. The people there should be engaging with others and attendees and stuff. So this is important to have like a good time with people, with proper time for everyone to have a talk space to talk. Um, and this is really important as well to have a proper Q&A at the end. So if people doesn't have a time to ask during the debate, so you have time in the end. Uh, that one was as organizers and as an attendee in the panel. This is some of the tips that I think are important. But the first one is to be connected with the people. Like you're passing your content and your love and sharing knowledge with community because you like it, not because you're paid to do it or maybe the wrong reason. So be there, be engaged with the people, and be really excited about it because it should be fun as well as organizers and as a participant. Uh, Try to come up with your opinion in a way that's this you can improve the discussion. Not only like okay, you talk so much, I disagree, blah blah blah, and you're not bringing anything relevant to the discussion if you're just disagreeing, if you're just being uh, talking too much, but not really talking that much important stuff. So watch out when you're like participating. Like it's really good to have this kind of previous conversation before as well, if it's possible. But this kind of tip, I think, raises the alert. If you have this kind of person like attending debates in general, should be avoided. Uh, if you don't have too much to say about some topic, let other people shine. If my specialty is Android and other person like specialty is Firebase, I don't need to talk about Firebase just to be talking about. Let the people shine. Let the other person like be engaged, especially for minorities like women and black people, LGBT people doesn't have that much voice, that much space. Let people shine. It's all right. You're not. They're not steal your thunder. So it's really good to have this kind of space for everyone. Uh, After the panel, stick around a bit. It's good to have this kind of engagement with people. I'm seeing this here now. Okay, I'm seeing this here now. So it's important to have this kind of time after the talk and have fun. Should always be fun. Okay. Besides panels in general and talks, there's a lot of different structures for panels in general. This is a article. There's a site, really. There's a website about panels, so called Powerful Panels, and they have this kind of different structures for panels in general. So you have the style that's half of it is presented and half of it is Q&A, and another style is like a lot of short presentations, a huge presentation and Q&A, or another style has this kind of welcome introduction. Everyone has this very exactly same space to talk, and then in the end you have Q&A. So this article has a good structure about different kind of panels. Okay, the links are available also. This is for developers. Who here that is a developer and also a GDG organizer has had run a coding dojo? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great. A lot of people. For those who doesn't know what a coding dojo is, it's like a format that you have this kind of challenge for developers, and then you have this. The setup is engaging for everyone, so everyone has the time to contribute to the solution. So in dojos in general, we have this challenge, and we have like one person that is the pilot, and then the other person that's a co-pilot, and then you like have 5 minutes per lap to solve the issue, and usually it's like TDD with testing and stuff, but it's a very good format for developers, and it's a very different way instead of talks to engage developers and other persons. So this is a very good way to engage different people. So if you have an audience there's only developers or people that's starting something or want to know something about what is new in Android or Kotlin or whatever, you have this format is really good for developers in general. Peraí. Não tá funcionando. Sorry. Here. How can I run one dojo as organizer? Make sure to find a proper content. We have also a Kotlin meetup in São Paulo, and we did a dojo for Kotlin coroutines. Rodrigo helped me to run the Kotlin coroutines dojo, and it was fun because people were engaging and like actually trying to make coroutines and like actually trying the code itself. So it's really cool to have these different formats because developers they are usually introvert, so they don't want to talk more, they want to be loud, and they are very shy usually. So this kind of format is really good because they are on the comfort zone, so it's very nice to have them engaging. If you have recurrent dojos, always try to come up with different challenges, different approaches, but also say about what you did in the previous one. I'll say, so if you want to have this kind of progression in your community, like let's learn about Polymer and then learn about how to create your own web component, blah blah blah. You can create this kind of journey for each dojo. So if you have, for example, regular meetups and then regular dojos, you can have this kind of progression with the community together. So this is really cool. Make sure to track time, like talks and panels in general. It's important to have a proper track of time. It's okay to pause the dojo to have to see if everyone is going to the same place. Like if everyone is enjoying the talk, or everyone is engaging in general. And after the dojo, it's important to have the code available. So if the person doesn't attend, or maybe usually have all the talks for the meetups recorded. So it's important to have the talks content, the code itself presented in other place. Okay. And as a participant, it's very similar to the panel. So you should be respectful with other participants, not put too much of your opinion on that. Like it should be engaging and also collective. So you should be engaging together and growing together with your community. Try to focus on your position as a pilot or core pilot. For example, if you're in the position of a pilot, you're the person who is coding. So when you're a co-pilot, you don't just throw your body on top of the computer like coding together. Be the person on each position, so you make sure that everyone's engaging. Don't push your favorite ideas forward. So be respectful of other ideas and stuff. It's important to have everyone engaging, like design sprints. Every collective dynamic should be collective, as the name says. So it's important to have everyone engaged in general. And the objective of dojos and meetups in general is to grow together, not to be to have your opinion on top of everyone. So should be fun. And is there any other format that's good enough for meetups in general? I would recommend these ones. There's a lot of different formats for meetups in general, but these, besides panels and coding dojos and talks, are really good examples of how you can engage people. For example, if you have live streams on YouTube, ask me anything sessions. For example, we have this really important persons like Italo, which is like, like a famous person, a famous Googler or developer coming to ask to respond people. You can provide these different approaches live. You can call a lot of people attending the meetup, and then you can have this kind of ask me anything sessions, or like make a live on Instagram, on YouTube. You can also have podcasts and comments, podcasts and videos about the content that was presented on the meetup. Maybe if you have very good talks presented, you can record that and publish as a podcast, or maybe publish as a video. It's good. And we usually do to the meetups interviews in general. So if you have this person that comes by in the city for a conference, you want to interview the person, it's good to record that and to have this kind of setup for provide the content later to other people. So these kind of formats are good, and then it's good to mix it up, like have this kind of different mix. For example, I have an interview with a Googler, and then I transform that into a podcast, or maybe transform that into an article. So you have this kind of content after the meetup, so you can provide that to your community as well. So I think that's it. Anyone has some sort of question? To wrap up, the thing that I want important to say is that this one is the picture from DevFest São Paulo, 2015. As you can see, there's a lot of people, and it was at Google at that time. And for me, the important part for every meetup talk or every community engagement in general is to have people, is to reach people and help them to grow, instead of just organize it to bump a number in the Google GDG organization. So it's important to have this kind of really good motivation to do meetups in general. So I think these formats can help you increase the engagement of the people, so you can like not bother everyone with the same meetup with 2 talks and pizza, the very same structure. So I always try to engage people with different formats, so you keep the GDG entertaining, and you keep the people engaged, and you keep people waiting like for that fest and other different events from the community. I think that's it. We have time for Q&A, I think. Yeah, anyone has a question about it? Yeah, you can talk.
So in terms of engagement, do you mind using the mic for the recording as well?
Okay.
You have to stand, or you can.
Yeah.
The spotlight.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying like all these modules we can use to kind of increase the engagements or on our meetups or other types of events. So for us in Macedonia, what was really challenging was how do we kind of take the stress out of the participants and make them like discuss more or ask more questions.
Yes.
And we've tried doing ice-breaking sessions at the beginning, and then we're trying doing like networking sessions at the end. But maybe you have another idea that I would like to hear.
Yeah, icebreakers are really good in any kind of structure that's really calm and people are like very shy to engage. So icebreakers I really recommend icebreakers for those who doesn't know what icebreakers is. It's like activities to make people laugh and make people relax a little bit, like that 2 lies and 1 true questions, or maybe activities that people can like straight up and get up, energize. Yes. So I really recommend to make that between sessions, or maybe before the talks or after the talks. Or if you're doing like a dev fest, I always try to come up with a person who is a MC, or person who is the host of the show, like doing this kind of stuff. Like in Brazil, the giveaways are a way to engage people. So Leon in the conference in some Capiconf, right? He made a candy machine with using Firebase, and he made this kind of live giveaway with this kind of engaging the community. Everyone was laughing, and it was really fun. So this is a way. So I always recommend to be connected. Like if people doesn't like it, provide a feedback form, maybe to improve in the next one. I think it's good enough. Anyone else want to ask? I'll be here for some time after the talk. So thanks everyone who came up, and follow us on